Good morning, everybody. We are out for another weekly peek into the creek, and I am streamside at Minter Creek, right adjacent to the Minter Creek Fish Hatchery. And good news, there are fish to be seen here. Let me flip the camera around. And way off in the distance, in the safe part where there's no fishing beyond this point, we can see chum salmon trying to navigate up. This passage is blocked, but off to the left, you can see the flow of water coming in. That is the fish ladder that's gonna lead these fish upstream to the hatchery facility where they can be spawned out. Now there's also quite a bit of fish in the river here, all moving, jostling for position, showing off their fitness of how strong they are, how ready to reproduce they are. They've still got quite a bit of energy and fight in them at this stage of the game, although they begin to deteriorate fairly quickly once they get into the fresh water like this. So these fish are what we call anadromous, which means they begin their life in fresh water, transition to salt water, and then they come back to anadromous. Come back to the fresh water again. Here we have, there's a bald eagle flying by. Woohoo! These predators definitely know when salmon spawning season happens because they can come along streamside and catch a real easy meal. Oh, there goes the seagull. There goes a heron over there. So we've got lots and lots of predators hanging out here, taking advantage of these fish. Because once they spawn, either in the hatchery or the few that can make it up into the natural part of the stream, or those that spawn early and don't quite make it to actually reproduce, these fish are going to be what we call kind of zombie fish for a while. They lose their digestive organs as they make way for all of their sexual potential, and so they starve. They also tend to get skin diseases and lesions, which occasionally we see on these fish as they're going up. You may see white patches on a few of them, and they kind of just fall apart. Because they've been in the saltwater for a while, their bodies have accumulated some salts, and then when they hit the fresh water, the fresh water kind of intrudes into their body tissues. So they kind of swell, they retain water, and their kidneys, which is the part of their body that normally controls that homeostasis or that salt balance within their bodies, has undergone kind of a one-way switch when they were migrating out as little juvenile fry. So what that means is these fish, once they're done spawning, will die. They'll perish. Sometimes it takes a couple hours. Other times they may be alive for a few days. But those carcasses are going to then enrich the surrounding environment. They're going to feed the predators that are here, taking advantage of this nice big free meal. It's kind of cool to see the fish sort of sneaking by us. Or in this little shallow area, we can kind of catch a good glimpse of them. Lots of activity here creekside. So this is, again, Minter Creek Fish Hatchery. It is a state-run hatchery that artificially bolsters the salmon population so that we humans have enough to meet our needs as well as the needs of the wild animals that are here. Now, hatcheries do have some drawbacks that we can cover in a later video, but what they do for our small salmon population is pretty significant. And you'll notice that there are so many fish here. Look at them all. And this is something we just don't see locally in a natural stream. There's been a lot of changes to the stream environment as humans have settled into this area and changed things like adding roadways and culverts and different types of runoff, and all of that has affected our salmon population negatively, all while the population of humans and the consumption of salmon has increased. So these hatcheries provide a means for bolstering the salmon population. If you want to post in the comments where you're watching from, that's information we love to know. We've been doing these Peek into the Creeks now. This is our second week. And you'll notice from last week, we've lost a lot of the leaves on the maple trees. These big leaf maples are part of the reason why the water is so brown. It's essentially been leaching tannins into the water, and those tannins then stain the water kind of this brown coloration, and that's all from the leaves that are falling. Not all of the leaves in our evergreen state here fall off. In fact, quite a few of our deciduous trees and shrubs like salal and sword ferns and huckleberries, a lot of them can keep their leaves throughout the winter months. So our state actually stays fairly green all year round. It's not just for those big tall conifers, although they do make quite the statement. Right here creekside, we've got a handful of different conifers. Mostly I'm noticing Douglas firs, those are the very, very tall ones. And then we also have some western red cedar. We've got a bit of wind, so you can see our trees are kind of dancing a bit up there. But it's definitely calmed down quite a bit from yesterday. We were out last night doing a mussel cage placement. You can take a look back at our Facebook page to see that video. And at the very beginning of the video, there is a chum salmon that was trying to figure out, what are these humans doing? I'm trying to find the stream. What are these weird two-legged creatures doing out in the dark in the bay? Oh, look at all this big school of fish coming through. So it is possible to tell males and females apart when you are viewing them, but you kind of need them to hold still a little bit. The males will have a more hooked kype or nose that kind of arches upward and makes it so the fish cannot close their jaws any longer. That is all because of sexual selection and what the lady salmon like best, I guess. It advertises their suitability for a mate, and it's kind of similar to peacock feathers or any other ways that males compete for females using their, oh, here comes a heron, using their plumage or their outward appearance. We got a noisy seagull chiming in here saying, hey, hurry up and die already, I want to eat you. Okay, maybe that's not what he said, but but in these chum salmon, a good indicator is the females will have a dark bar along their sides. It's kind of like a big black stripe, as if they swam against a fence post that had just been freshly painted. The males tend to have kind of purple or maroon splotches along their backs as well. And when we get into, maybe by next week, we should start to see some carcasses of freshly dead fish. I can definitely point out the differences on them there. Yeah, lots and lots of fish action here at Minter Creek. Now, we did see a couple of anglers here catching fish. Even though the salmon are not necessarily eating this time of year, it's kind of hard to turn off their brain and their instinct to strike at a piece of food or a flashing lure that comes their way. So though they're not really reliant on the nutrition that they're gaining right now, they do sometimes still hit the hook. And so you can capture a chum salmon if you've got a salmon license. Here, let's move to a different vantage point. Maybe I can get a better view with a little less glare. You can see lots of these fish coming up here. And they all look really good. They're nice and clean still. They haven't got very many of those fin lesions or problems with their skin. Wow, there's a whole bunch right here. So you can see some of them have those dark bars. Those are the females. The males have really kind of attractive splotchiness. The males also tend to have more of a humped back, which again is advertisement to the females that they are very fit and healthy males and should be chosen to reproduce, to be allowed to fertilize the females' eggs. What the females will do is when they make their way upstream, they will find a suitable gravel section, pretty much where the gravel is the same size as the eggs that they will lay. and then they will kind of dig a shallow depression with their tail called a red. And when the right male comes along, really the most attractive, the biggest, the brightest color, the hookiest nose, the humpiest back, she will kind of signal to them. They'll do kind of a little dance together where they're vibrating their fins against one another, and then she will lay her eggs and the male will immediately fertilize them. So the eggs are very soft until they hit the water, and then they harden. So they must be fertilized in like the first second that they are laid. Otherwise, the eggs will harden and they'll just be unfertilized eggs and food for all the predators. So if you want to view salmon, this is a great spot because you can watch them. You can see what's going on. It's a little noisy with all of the flow from the hatchery, as well as their machinery and pumps that are moving water around. So it's kind of a less peaceful salmon viewing, but it is still pretty great to be able to see these fish doing their thing. It's rather like watching, like, I think wildebeest or antelope migrate or something like that, where you see just huge numbers of animals doing what nature wants them to do. Other places I recommend for salmon viewing would be places like Chico Creek in Bremerton. That's a really great salmon stream that's undergone quite a bit of restoration in the past couple years. And so I would expect that we would see a good number of healthy fish there. Donkey Creek in Gig Harbor that opens out into Gig Harbor Bay is another good spot for watching fish. It's in a state of restoration right now. Look at all these fish. Sorry, sometimes I feel like I shouldn't be talking because I'm just witnessing something so stinking cool. But all of these are public areas. You can access this stream here by the roadside next to the hatchery. I'm not sure if the hatch, usually they open up their parking lot, but I'm not sure with kind of COVID times if they're allowing visitors to come into the hatchery facility and park and then walk by. But hopefully you can do that. If not, you can park on the roadside and just walk by. You just basically follow the fence from the road. You can alternatively cross the street and go walk down into the estuary, but the fish will not be as concentrated there. So right here, they're all kind of waiting to head up the fish ladder to the hatchery, or there are a few that'll be allowed to pass up past the hatchery and spawn naturally. So that's what these fish are kind of gathered here doing. So great to see them. I'm so excited when we get to see the fish coming through. All right, I'm gonna hold really still and do my best. I'm a tree impression. There's salmon. They haven't seen trees for 5 years since they were little babies. They don't know they're not green, they're not blue. As we stand here taking them on. They may come close. Lots and lots of activity here as they're jostling and showing off their readiness to mate. And then if we look way over here, we can see just the backs of these fish that are splashing. Now that splashing is coming from the fish themselves, not just the creek flowing or not just a waterfall here. Occasionally we'll see these fish trying to jump up. Chum salmon are not great jumpers. They can only jump about 3 or 4 feet compared to sockeye salmon. I think sockeye were reported to have jumped over 12 feet in Scotland, which is crazy to think about a fish jumping that high. I mean, I can jump my height, which is seems pretty impressive until you realize I'm pretty short. But for these fish to be able to jump so high to get past barriers as a part of their migration is just incredible. All right, my friends. Well, I need to share this creek with the folks over on TikTok. So I'm going to wrap up this broadcast and go head over there. If you're a follower of ours on TikTok, you should pop on, come say hi, all of that. And of course, thank you to everyone who's liked and shared and commented today. That helps push this out to even more people. And the more people that we can bring these amazing natural activities to, the better. The more people that'll be inspired to protect the Salish Sea that these salmon depend on. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all of you who are regular donors to Harbor Wild Watch. We are a nonprofit organization who provides educational content for free. And we're so excited to be able to bring you back some in-person salmon tours that are coming up later this month. So head over to our website, harborwildwatch.org, and you can check out our footage there and our calendar of events. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.